So this is the for life after grad school, and we will be talking specifically about fellowship. We are still in the fellowship season, so I believe this is a very timely discussion for those in grad school, those about to graduate, and even those that are already in their career but still looking into maybe fellowships or what is out there for them. So we'll jump right ahead, and I will introduce myself, then introduce our speakers and few other people in the room that will get started. So I am Victoria Carey, and I serve as one of the YPC co-chairs for our conference track and events. So we do a lot of preparation for putting events together for our young professionals that are in NACI, and also for our conference, national conference. I am also a current administrative fellow at Harvard Healthcare, where I'm currently serving at the Health Equity Department and also our Clinical Innovation and Medical Informatics Department as well. I have with us Chelsea Perry, who I will introduce soon, and also I have Innocent Okechukwu. Then we have Kian Calendar, who is our tech backup for tonight. So if you have any questions, you have any thoughts as we run through this discussion, just put it in the chat, and we will try our best to pick it up and also open up for Q&As at the end of this conversation. So I will go ahead and I will introduce Chelsea. So Chelsea is a senior manager of product development at CVS Health, and also the co-founder of Accelerator, which is one of my favorite platforms out there for career advancement for BIPIC who are aspiring executives. Also, this platform really does a very great job preparing our students out there who are looking for fellowship opportunities, project management opportunities, and other competitive career opportunities out there. Chelsea has experience in operation management and project management. She has worked with large systems such as Kaiser Permanente and Davida. And also Chelsea has a master's degree from Virginia Commonwealth University, and a bachelor's in community health from the University of Maryland. Also, Chelsea did her fellowship with Kaiser, so we have a previous fellow with us for this conversation, so I think that's really great. We also have Innocent Okechukwu, who likes to go by Inno, and Inno is a strategy and operations leader at UW Health. So he is currently a business and finance manager at UW Health. He also got his bachelor's and his master's of science administration, health administration from the University of Missouri, and also is the co-founder for Accelerator. He is also very passionate about entrepreneurship, and that alone is self-explanatory for the platform that they do run. So we'll go ahead and get started. We'll try to make it as very interactive as possible. And I just want to dive in and really ask I would say a very curious conversation for maybe people in the room that really do not know what fellowship is about. We'll start this conversation if you both can really just walk us through what is a fellowship and what does it look like. So we could start from there.
Well, I'll be happy to start, and then feel free to check me if I say anything wrong, but an administrative fellowship is a fancy kind of term that we use in the healthcare space to describe what is generally in other industries known as a management training program or a leadership development program. So administrative fellowships can range from anywhere from 1 year to 2 years. Generally, I don't see too many beyond that 2-year mark, but it's really an opportunity to go to an organization like a large health system, a small health system, a healthcare organization focused on ambulatory care or strictly hospital-based care. I mean, we've seen a growth in the types of fellowships that are offered nowadays. But really, it's an opportunity for early careerists or recent grads to go into a space and largely a learning environment, in a safe space to develop new skills around finance or data analytics, or learning how to manage your first department, quality operations. It really it varies from organization to organization, but it's an opportunity for you to now take what you've learned in theory and somewhat practice throughout your internships in grad school to a higher stakes sort of environment where you're building up to be what you want to be after this 1 to 2 years of intensive training. But I'll kick it over to Eno to shed some more light about how fellowships are described in his view.
Yeah, thank you, Chelsea, and Victoria, Keon, thank you guys for having us. This is an awesome conversation. Before I even get started, one of the things I like to do, like wherever I'm talking to a group, is just understand where folks in the audience are in their careers. So if you guys in the audience want to pop that into the chat, would be super helpful to Chelsea and I to maybe help frame the discussion so we know where everyone is at and address some points that might be relevant, or most relevant rather. Yeah, so Chelsea covered the majority of fellowships, like the structure and generally how what the approach is to fellowships. I think another point that we've often discussed and that we're seeing more and more of now is, as we think about healthcare fellowships, it is across all industries and all sectors. So we definitely are, tend to be more familiar with provider setting administrative fellowships in hospitals and within health systems, but now you're seeing them within insurance, within large health tech companies. CVS Health even has a management or a leadership development program, and even startups like Oak Street Health or Chen Med, I think it's called. So that's the great thing about fellowships. At its core, the value proposition for organizations or for companies bringing in management trainees, leadership development program participants, or administrative fellowships, whatever you want to call them, is that they are developing new talent within the field, within the organization, and developing that talent ultimately to serve as a pipeline for leadership roles within their organization. So there's a very kind of crisp and straightforward value proposition for organizations. But then from the fellow side, or from the participant side, you're getting a highly curated and a super valuable experience for 1 to 2 years, where you're learning from senior leadership. You're getting a wide array of experiences that in most cases you probably wouldn't get in a quote unquote normal job. This is intended to put you in a position where you are a designated learner, but also consistently providing value to the organization through projects, through interim leadership opportunities, and a host of other things.
That is really, really great. And you both really summed it up in a very articulated manner, and also in a way that makes it sound very, very appealing. So before we get into the next discussion, thank you, for prompting people to drop in the chat what level in their career or their academic journey they are on. And I see a lot of students in this room, a lot of people finishing up either their final semester or students starting their journey. And I think this is a very great time to start thinking what is out there for you when you start to think of transitioning from school to the career field. So I think this really, your introduction really leads into the next question that I really would love to know what the value is like. So what value does the fellowship itself provide in the healthcare field? And where do you go as a fellow? Where do you go next with your fellowship journey? So if you could tell me a little bit about the value proposition that had initially mentioned.
I would say that one of the many value props of a fellowship is the sort of try it before you buy it mentality, meaning that generally once you begin a fellowship or a leadership development program, you get to align with your preceptor on the interest areas that you have. Of course, you were brought into the organization to tackle a couple of projects related to strategic priorities of the organization. So it may just be joint commission season and they're going to have you really focused on working with the nursing teams to prep for, that big survey that's coming up. But there's going to be other opportunities where you get to say like, oh, I don't have a lot of experience in data analytics, or, what, I don't know what it means to partner with a, CVS Health and do a retail related kind of ambulatory project. And so one of the awesome things about the fellowship is that you get to be an explorer in that safe learning environment that Ino was mentioning, and kind of get to try on a couple of different hats before you're ultimately going to be pushed to make a decision about a particular direction that you want to go in your career. And so I think that's one of the beauties of a fellowship-like program, is that you get to build muscle or build skill in areas that scare you, that you probably wouldn't have picked for yourself. But ultimately, it's going to make you a better leader on the other side, because now you've gotten to work cross-functionally. Now you've gotten to dig around in Tableau, or you've gotten to, put on a bunny suit and be in the supply chain area of the hospital, or whatever the case is. And it kind of informs your worldview as you exit the program and start to work with other leaders in the space. But you're also going to be relegated to like your own particular focus. So you've learned how to become better at the things that you wanted to be good at, but you also have gotten a chance to see what other folks' world looks like in the broader ecosystem or grand scheme of the entire system. So I think that's one of the main value props of a fellowship. What do you think, Ino?
Yeah, that really does capture quite the majority of it, from a sort of business standpoint from the organization. And this is not just administrative fellowships, but all training programs, especially like in academic health centers, that you'll see a lot, like medical residents or pharmacy residents. Whenever there's a training program, it's structured in a manner where the salary is pretty cheap, but the value for the participant is very high. And that's the exchange there, in a very like basic, sort of way. But the experience that you're going to be getting coming into a 1 to 2 year fellowship is getting trained and mentored by executives who are 20, 30 years into their career and have such a wide view and understanding of the industry that they're going to help you navigate, certain speed bumps that you had no, idea existed way long before you even approach it. So that's that part on the value proposition. I think one thing that's interesting, and I saw in the chat that there's a physician assistant in the room, and one thing I would say is like these fellowship programs or these leadership development programs are actually not only specific to business professionals. Funny story is one of my really, really close friends, when I was doing a fellowship, he was down in Orlando Health. He was a 3rd-year resident, emergency medicine resident, but he's always aspired to go into physician leadership. And so he proposed post-residency a 1-year fellowship after I told him that our department chair of emergency medicine and a number of the physician leaders had all done fellowships. One of them actually did it at Yale New Haven, our emergency medicine chair. So I'm just, my point in bringing that up is to share that it's for business professionals, it's for clinical professionals, it's really a leadership development program, regardless of what area of leadership you would like to focus in.
Yeah, and I think to answer I think you had a 2-parter there, Victoria, about like what people do. Yeah, what do you do after the fellowship? And I know Keon's on the line too, so I know he's our tech support, but Keon, feel free to chime in if you feel comfortable. But I mean, I think you can do literally anything after your fellowship, absent like be the CEO of whatever, organization it is, but it's really a time for you to kind of define what your career trajectory could look like on the other side of that program. And so folks like Keon, who are like data whizzes and just masters of their trade, have gone into strategy and analytics, and folks like Ino, who are really awesome at strategy and finance, have taken that route. I took a more traditional, I guess you could say, operations route, and found out that it wasn't for me, and then pivoted after. But I think that in terms of like functional area, you can do almost anything if you've built the requisite experiences in the program to say to a hiring manager like, hey, I think I would be a value add to your team. In terms of role types, I know people often get stuck on titles and wonder, like, will they get to be a director after the fellowship? And I don't know if that's a part of our event today. I don't like to open that can of worms, but, in terms of like, the level that you could be in a fellowship or post-fellowship position, it's variable too. And so I tell people, keep an eye out for the things that truly interest you and the skills that you want to gain versus the types of organizations where you think you might be able to be like the COO in a year and that sort of thing. Just kind of stay focused on the upskilling and the reskilling that we talked about in the TED Talk earlier.
Yeah, I appreciate your point of view for that. And honestly, Chelsea, as you had mentioned, this conversation can go any route we want it to go as long as we're covering the fellowship talk. And I know it's a very extensive conversation when it comes to the fellowship world. And there's two things you both mentioned that I like to pick up on. You had mentioned it's not just for those in the leadership or interested in management. We have a physician assistant in the room. It's for anyone looking to jump into management from any spectrum of whatever your career trajectory is, or wherever your starting point is in your career. And I know me, for example, when I started my fellowship, and I remember having a conversation with Kian, who is our program manager, and I asked him one day, will I get to do the hospital operations stuff that I have heard so much about? And he said, oh, you're a system fellow. This is what it entails. And it jumps into the conversation that Chelsea also had when it comes to you would dive into things that scares you. And you have people who are so good with their words, like Kian, to encourage you to always try something new. This is a training program, so don't come in with a tunnel vision. Always have the open mind to learn as much as you can, and just be ready for anything that comes your way. But again, I definitely do appreciate the 2 points that you guys clearly made, which is don't be scared when jumping into this opportunity, and also don't think it's for this specific type of people. Anyone can jump into this as long as you have that drive and the willingness to do it, which really leads me to the next conversation, which is around, I would say, the application process. As we may all have seen or may not, there's this announcements going on LinkedIn around this time when everyone is announcing the fellowship that they committed to for the next year or two, or if they did not get a fellowship and what's next for them in their career journey. So I really want to ask, what is the necessary competitive or components of a competitive application? As the two of you prepare students to go out there and compete with other students out there to secure either an organization that only has one spot, that has about 100 applicants for just one spot. How do you guys prepare your applicants to be the best when it comes to being very competitive?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, and thank you for that lead in. So in our work with Accelerator, that's like a huge focus on what we do. And in our experience as well, happy to share components from that as well. So I would say, one of the most critical parts is understanding the application funnel, specifically when you're applying to really competitive roles, regardless of the industry or the role. But let's speak about fellowships. They're highly competitive. You're going to be pursuing, a role that, is accepting 1 to 2 applicants, when there's, 100 or a couple hundred people applying to the role. And most of them are going to have similar backgrounds, educational and professional backgrounds to you. So give yourself an opportunity by applying to maybe a few more than you think is, your starting point. So get that number to 10 or so fellowships that you're going to be applying to. Think about where you would actually want to accept and the reasons why you're applying to them, but obviously give yourself an opportunity to succeed. I think secondly, after that is so much of what allows people to be great applicants, regardless of whatever the application is their understanding of the process from A to Z. And the best way to really gain that understanding is to work with somebody that's already been there and done that. Mentorship is the best way to kind of get that edge that a lot of folks are seeking in these competitive roles. So that's something that I tell folks that I'm working with all the time. You're a step ahead if you're talking to someone that has already done the fellowship process, and especially if they've done it successfully. They know what markers you need to hit, what thresholds are acceptable for the application committee. But those are probably 2 areas that I think would significantly help your chances of landing.
Yeah, I agree with that, Inno. And I would say like the other kind of forgotten key ingredient is just to have a strategy in general. Like it seems really simple to say, but you wouldn't believe the number of folks that we have come through the Accelerator program or even outside of the program that we often. Can you guys still hear me? Might have.
Yeah, we got you back.
Yes,
It's a little choppy.
but it was on my end. Okay. We'll just.
Yep.
While Chelsea, oh, there we go.
I was going to say, sorry guys, did my internet conk out? Anyway, what I was trying to say is just have a strategy. There are a lot of folks that are just shooting in the dark. They're doing this for clout. And they don't realize when they get into those interview settings, like organizations are going to drill down on like the why do you love us? Like, no, really, why do you love us? What are you going to contribute when you get here? What do you know about XYZ topic that we're really passionate and focused on? And that gets really hard to speak to when you're shooting your shot at 30 plus organizations because you just want to land somewhere. And so, you know, we really help people through our program focus in on a narrative that makes sense for the places that they're applying to and help them put that strategy together, but also that mitigation plan. You know, it's never good to be fellowship or bust or anything or bust, right? It's always great to kind of have things to choose from and understand your true like competitive profile for the different opportunities that you're going up for. And so we always help people have a cushion under them too, as they consider their options.
If I could just add quickly, you know, my recommendation to a lot of fellowship candidates is if you don't picture yourself at an organization, don't waste your time applying there. Because say if you get it and it's the only fellowship you get and you never really picture yourself living in, you know, Missouri or Nebraska or something like that, you're going to spend that year, that 2 years being miserable just for the sake of having a fellowship. So, you know, certainly do your research, you know, find out what are the qualities that you like about those fellowship organizations, that you like about the area, and go in with that mentality versus, as Chelsea said, you know, not going for just the sake of getting a fellowship.
Thank you all for that great point. And to piggyback on all of that, starting with Kian's point, it really takes doing that research and really learning about that organization, loving that organization. And for me, for example, would be, I'm not a fan of Connecticut, but I love Hartford Healthcare. So you have to really do your research and make sure. So it's me saying, I love the organization. I can make it work. I really don't care about the environment in a sense, but find a way to make it work, right? Do that research and make sure this is a place that you see yourself growing. And also to Chelsea's point, you really have to, again, do your research. Don't just shoot for 30 organizations hoping to land one, because they will ask you, why do you love us? Why should we choose you among the hundreds of applications that we have that all look good, right? And would you really go out there trying to know your why and why you love 30 organizations? That alone is stressful. So it's really, really hard to do. And to Inno's point, talking to someone that has done this before, really doing your research, all that stuff is really what it takes. And I'm just summing up what everyone said. And I can say that being someone that did the process twice. The first time, like Inno mentioned, I just went in a little bit naive, a little bit blind, didn't really do my research, and I felt it. Then the next time, when you prepare, when you talk to those that can help you, because as they always say, it takes a village. So you might think you know it all. It's just an application. It's not just an application, because your grades and everything that you have that you think looks so good, the next person has it too. So it's now about how do you differentiate yourself from the next person. And sometimes the only factor is you talking to that person that has been through the process, that has done the process really successfully, had a fellowship, either currently doing their fellowship or did it or are in their post-fellowship career phase. So again, thank you both, all three of you, for your wonderful insight on that topic. And to lead into our next point, right, we just want to know a little bit more on how can a fellow make the most of their fellowship experience? So now we've talked a bit about how to be competitive, how to go through this application process. You've made your announcement that you got this fellowship. How do you go and be prepared and make the most out of it? And anyone could take that.
Well, I'll say don't do any pre-reading. I always get questions about like, should we study, like, should I be learning different things like before the fellowship? And like, no, that's your time to like go to Croatia or just like decompress after school. Don't like try to learn how to be an operator in 1 month before your fellowship starts. But I think in terms of like making the most of the experience too, is just be really vocal about what you're there to do. There's so many people that get lost in the fellowship because they've got like 1 or 2 projects that, they're going to build some skills, they're going to learn some things, but maybe it's not relevant to the direction that they're taking, right? And they're just kind of powering through those projects, but they really want to see another facet of the system that they're just too scared or nervous to speak up about. So really cultivate a relationship with your preceptor or leader who's helping you through this process of being very clear about what it is that you want to see, because at the end of the fellowship, you're going to have to likely compete with other administrators.
We'll give it a second, then Eno can take it. Eno, do you want to jump in? And when she comes back, she can finish her book.
Yeah, sure thing. So I would say actually going to piggyback off her point. One of the things that I think is super crucial in being successful in the fellowship is going in with intention. And so a lot of fellows actually go in not knowing exactly where they want to specialize or what kind of career they want to end up in post-fellowship. But a lot of folks also do know, I want to be focused in pediatrics, or I want to be focused in insurance, or I want to be focused in strategy and data. I think the best version actually is to have a strategy. Even if your strategy isn't pinpointed on a certain kind of specialty or area of focus, if the strategy is, I'm going to be intentional about making the most connections that I could lever in the future towards career advancement or to end up in a place that I think is right for me, then that's a strategy that you should execute on, or that you can execute on rather. So that's my biggest tip for being successful within the fellowship, is being intentional. Roll that into the project work and into the rotations, and really understand what is it you're trying to get out of this. There is a lot. I have never met a fellow that had the opportunity to cover every single component of the organization, and I don't think I will. But you also shouldn't be shooting for that, because the CEO doesn't even know every single component of the organization. You should lean into your strengths, and you should build a community and mentors that actually care where you go next. That actually probably has the most impact on your career trajectory, or just like where you end up post fellowship. So.
Thank you. Chelsea, do you want to jump back in?
Oh. You know what? I don't even know where you guys lost me, and I'm scared you're going to lose me again. So I'll try to keep the floor open for my colleagues here that have been fellows too, to speak to the certain things too. But I heard everything that Eno said, and I'm aligned there. That strategy is super important. But I also would just add to knowing when to move, right? Like if you're in a program where there's a rotational structure, or maybe there's a preceptor that really loves having you on the team, but you're like, it's time for me to go to that next rotation and see something new and have a different impact. Just knowing when to move and get that next opportunity within your fellowship program to grow, and don't feel like bound to a particular area of focus. The way you start is not necessarily the way you finish.
Yeah, thank you for that. You both.
Victoria, I know you're the moderator, but would certainly love for you to share a little bit about your experience for those who are also in the room, just some of that current fellow experience.
Sure. And I was just going to say you both have really been preaching to me directly this night, and even coming in as a moderator, so came in to listen and to learn as a current fellow. What can I take from my previous fellows that I've not really had that conversation with prior to jumping in? So to Chelsea's point earlier before we lost her, it felt like she was coming directly for me because I spent 6 months before starting my fellowship really learning what I'll be doing. So I asked, I know nothing when it comes to like the data analytic world really scares me. And I remember really learning beyond the Excel that I know and learning as much as I can because I had this impression that even though fellowship is a training program, but you also don't want to come in clueless. And I'm that type of person who always want to be able to deliver to the best of my abilities. So I went searching for answers, and it was really hard to find those answers. And I remember when I first got here, having a conversation with Keon, and he was like, you don't need to know all of that. That's why you're here. You're here to learn. You don't need to know the answers before getting here, right? So I felt like you were really preaching to me and also coming for me when you said that. But I truly appreciate it, and it's a great advice for anyone in this room looking to apply for fellowship or any other career advancement opportunity to take in. Another point that had mentioned also was coming in with a strategy or some sort of intentions, and you have to be very intentional with the program. You don't really need to know what you want to do, the areas you want to cover, especially when it's a rotational base or even if it's project based and you really don't know what the projects are until you come in. You can't really draw or map out what you want to do until you get into the program. But being intentional and being a bit strategic and knowing, even if it's just like Eno said, making that connections that will lead you to the next project, that will help you in learning as much as you can, and building meaningful connection is all you can do. That's a great strategy. And that's also some strategies that I use. I know we have preceptors, we have mentors. Keon is not my direct mentor, but I keep telling him I have a third mentor because I keep bothering him every single day. I'm messaging him. The only time I tried my best not to message him was when he was away the past 2.5 weeks, and I felt it. The minute he came, I was one of the people to really jump into his calendar and book like a 45-minute session. So have a strategy, have something mapped up on how you plan to learn, how you plan to grow as a young professional, as someone in a current career stage where you are here to learn as much as you can. So thank you both for sharing that. And I truly appreciate the insights that you are giving. I hope those in the room are learning as well. So I know we have about 10 minutes left before we jump into Q&As. So I really want to quickly ask maybe one question, and that question, so we could jump into Q&A. That question will be, if we could type 2 questions together, actually. One question will be, how do you know a fellowship is the right decision for you? Because I think for now, that's what it seems to be, where most of our MHA and PH programs out there, the programs developing us upcoming executive leaders and management, really focus on the next step after your program is to do a fellowship. And there are certain people that still don't know what the fellowship is about. They still don't know the process. They just go in because they think that's the next thing to do. How do they know if that's the right thing to do? How do you make that type of decision? And also, if the fellowship is not the right thing to do or it's not for you, is there any sort of mitigation strategies for those that are looking for like backup plans when the fellowship application just don't pan out the way they wanted it to, or if it's just not for them? And I know that was a lot, but if you didn't get that, I can repeat it. 2 things. The decision-making process. How do I know if fellowship is for me? And also, what is a fallback plan, or how does a fallback plan look like if the fellowship world is not for me? Then we jump into Chelsea.
Yeah, happy to start here. So Yeah, this is an interesting question, and not even just specifically with fellowships, but just like career paths and choices. Personally, I feel like a lot of people don't do really deep career exploration before finding what the right career path is for them. A lot of things fall onto you, or you know someone that was successful in this path, or your parents said this would be a great path for you. It's not really as explorative as people might assume it is. So the first thing you can do to really understand if a fellowship is correct for you is do your research. It's very, very basic, but coming to panels like this, talking to former fellows, something tactical that you could do is go to LinkedIn, type in administrative fellows, see all the hundreds of people that come up, and navigate their career, trajectory. Where did they go post fellowship? Where did they come from? What are they doing today? Of course, your name is going to pop up on there. Who viewed my LinkedIn? And now you might be a creep, but this is the cost to be the boss. So do that as a tactical step to really understand, is a fellowship going to impact my career the way I want it to? And then if you find if it's the right fit for you, then that's an option to pursue. I think if you are on the fence about it, or you're interested in exploring outside of it, your career, you should always be trying to, I believe you should probably always be trying to curate your career in a way or in a manner that has the most upside, but also the most like value for you and what you want to do and who you want to become. Aligned to industries or sectors within an industry that fill your bucket and that you can actually show up to work and want to contribute, and you're excited about going to work on a daily basis. But then also there are specific roles and specific teams or specific companies where you're going to receive high value experiences in short periods of time that help the trajectory of your career. Fellowships are one of these experiences, high value, short period of time, allow you to leverage and, kind of propel your career in a strong manner. But other, career tracks that could be seen in a similar light is like consulting. Sure, you're going to be working 80-hour weeks like some fellows do, but it's going to be high value, and you're going to be able to leverage that, towards, in the next step of your career. But there are a number of different career tracks that provide that sort of experience, where you're going to be dealing with, working on a lot of projects, working with a lot of different teams, and just a high degree of learning right after you graduate, which is what I think most early careerists desire in order for their own personal and professional development and growth. How about Chelsea? What do you think?
Yeah, I think, you really covered it. I mean, the only thing that I would add, and maybe it's personal to different individuals, is like be brutally honest with yourself. I knew like I was a straight through undergrad to grad school person. And so on the other side of grad school, absent internships, I didn't have any work experience. I didn't have like necessarily a value prop to a lot of organizations that I aspired to work for. And so the fellowship was an opportunity for me to get skills so I could tell a story and be competitive in interview processes and get work experience. So I think it's part like, oh, you want to explore and learn different things, and part like you actually just need some things on your resume that you've been successful at and you can speak to in a way that is compelling to any future organizations that you're applying to. And I think, I alluded to this too, is just like a lot of these opportunities out there that exist post-grad are like doctored up in terms of the title, but they're really the same job. So a fellowship is ultimately project management in 1 to 2 years, and maybe you'll get to lead a team. Consulting is analytics and project management, and maybe you'll get to lead a team, right? And so we ascribe these different titles to different things. And it's important to recognize that you can recruit concurrently. You have skills that are applicable in many settings. And so it's just figuring out like, do you want that to be a part of your strategy so that you have a winning opportunity on the other side? Or do you want to be scrambling, close to graduation, trying to figure it out because you weren't open to recruiting concurrently for similar like positions? So I would just keep that in mind.
Thank you for that. Can we spend about maybe 1 or 2 minutes really talking about some mitigation strategies like fallback plans? I know you had mentioned consulting for people like Lima that had posted in the chat trying to find out, is fellowship the only or one of the ways to excel after graduating? How would you answer that question to someone who's not really sure if they want to do a fellowship yet? Or is there any other things out there, fellowship, consultant, what else is out there for those really looking and do not have a lot of experience under their belt?
Yeah, so just saying, in a minute or less, I'm going to go back. So for mitigation strategies, first, be open in the onset, as you're looking for jobs, be open to more than just the job that you want to get. The value is there in other titles and other roles. So that's a really important piece to understand. If it's not, in order to get a high value role where you're going to be learning a lot, fellowships are an excellent route to get that. So is going in as a consultant or associate consulting at a firm, but also understand where the industry trends are going. Like if you're focused on healthcare as an industry, digital health tech, that whole, part of the industry is in the future probably going to engulf everything else. It's going to be the focal point of healthcare delivery. And so maybe, an area that you want to look into is health tech or product management. And understand what they can do for that can do for your career. I really urge everyone, if you are confused or don't know, this is actually what I did. The tip that I gave earlier is what I did. I went to LinkedIn, I typed in all these career titles, and I just saw, where did people go? Like, where did the people that were graduating from like Howard or Harvard go to? Where are the people that graduated from my university going to? Where did the people, what did they do as a next step after their MHA or their MPH or their MBA program? And what did that do for their career? And just understanding all of that data point, all of those data points, and using that information to inform my decision making.
Thank you. Chelsea?
I mean, really hard to follow that. I would just say, like, don't sleep on the really technical roles either. I think there's a lot of interesting stuff going on in data science. I admire the hell out of Keon too for pursuing a highly analytical role. I think he'll, buy our company or be, positioned to just like know what we should do next just because of the space that he's in. So I think that don't sleep on the really technical roles. It's a great opportunity to differentiate yourself from people that have been generalists their whole career and going to have to figure it out where they want to deep dive. So I would say that's my advice.
This has been really great, very insightful. So we have 2 more minutes and about 3 minutes. So I'll give you both a minute and a half, a minute or so to really sum up everything, some advice that you may have for those in the room, and also if there's any next steps that some of these students should look out for.
Yeah, well, first of all, I appreciate you guys having us as a part of this really, really important discussion. And good luck to everyone that's going to be pursuing fellowships or other, career paths in the immediate or long-term future. Chelsea and I both co-founded Accelerator, and initially it started off of, from our own experiences of needing mentorship in order for career guidance. And so we just thought, how could we scale this effectively and help more people land competitive roles through mentorship and guidance at scale? And then even more specifically for diverse talent. I think as a general tip, seek out advice and don't do things by yourself. Use your community, leverage your mentors, leverage the insights of those that have been there and are willing to help you in order to get to the next step. One thing that, my team, when I got a promotion, or I'm sure this is just for other folks, on their first day on the job, when, you're hit with a new task, nobody's saying, how'd you get to this job or how'd you get to this role? They're just expecting you to get the work done. So as you leverage your team and your community to get to those next roles, that's a great thing. But obviously, the goal is to get there. So just you don't have to do it by yourself is the main takeaway here. So I'll pass it to Chelsea.
Yeah, and stop putting me after Inno. Really hard to follow. I like when I get to go first. I'm just kidding. I don't really have much more to add there. I think you really summed it up. I do want to make sure that we have time to answer any questions that the folks in the room have. So I'll stop talking and just open up the floor if that's okay.
Definitely. There was no questions. That's why I pointed out advice. But we only have 1 minute left. If anyone has any question, something they really want to hear about, take away in less than a minute, we'll definitely take that into consideration. Also, if not, Keon can also help us and give us like one advice for those in the room as well. Okay, so there's a question, which the answer to that question would be, you can also follow Accelerator on Instagram, LinkedIn, and they would definitely help you with a lot of questions that may be on your mind. And also, what if we do not have a strong resume, then what are our chances? And trust me, that is a very important question that probably cannot be answered in a minute, but Accelerator can help you beyond just this 40 minutes that we have. Keon, do you have any last words before we get kicked out?
So thank you everyone for joining this very important conversation. I was a former administrative fellow myself, and now have the privilege of overseeing an administrative fellowship program at my current organization, Hartford Healthcare. So I certainly want to just reiterate everything that both Chelsea and Ino have shared, that Victoria shared about her experience. Definitely do your research on if a fellowship program is right for you. So just because we're all here talking about fellowships doesn't mean like, oh yes, I need to do a fellowship now. Take the time. Even though it's a year or 2 years, it's still a commitment. So certainly take a step back, do that reflection, and find out, is a fellowship right for me at this stage in my career? Think about where you want to grow, how you want to develop, and it's okay if it's not a fellowship. There are so many other opportunities in the healthcare space, opportunities that are not in the healthcare space. All right.
Thank you.